Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome to the Nerds at Large Spoilercast for Bojack Horseman Season 6, aka the final season. I'm one of your hosts, Darby Horseman.
I'm Jeff Mayo.
And Jeff, that was it.
Yep. It's dead.
It is dead. Everyone died.
Yep. Spoilers. Everyone died. Everyone.
Bojack Horseman is done after several years. It was 20. I just had to look to see when the show started. It was 2014. So it's been a while, and it's all completely over. And just if you're watching this, just fair warning, it should be obvious, but we are going to be spoiling all of Bojack Horseman.
Nope. Darby, sorry. Calling an audible. 2 hours of spoiler-free discussion.
I'm just going to assume that no one is clicking on Bojack Season 6 spoiler cast, not without having, I don't know about this show. Let me go hear these people talk about the final season to really let me know if I should jump on board or not. Yeah, so full spoilers for the entire thing. So Jeff, let's get into it. We have obviously, me and you have talked a lot about this because it's been about a week or so, since we watched it, or two. How long has it been? I don't even know. It's been a little bit. We've had enough time to sit with it. As you'll learn as we talk about this, we both absolutely loved it. But Jeff, what was it about this season that kind of left Bojack? Like, what about this ending was so satisfying for you?
Because we got to the end of everyone's storylines, I think, in a very satisfying way, even if they're not in ways we necessarily wanted or expected. Mm-hmm. And the way they did the endings, it's part of the reason me and you have loved Bojack. It kind of mirrors life in a way. It is written, it is human, the way the characters handle things and all that, and where they're at and all that. And how some character relationship between characters ended at the end of the series, and what we can assume they are post-series.
Yeah. But I also kind of like you're saying how it being very real is I like that they're not going to clean everything up with a nice neat bow either, because some of these relationships are irreparable. They're not going to be repaired, or even if they're not harsh, it's just they drift apart. I actually think it was very powerful that at the end of this story, the gang is not really together anymore. A lot of these, outside of, we talked about weirdly enough, Princess Carolyn and Tide and
Mr. Peanut Butter kind of.
Yeah, weirdly enough, that they are probably the closest, more because of work and stuff. But Diane and Bojack had not seen each other in a long time, or at least a full year, and had barely seen each other much before that.
Neither of them have seen, based on my understanding, any of the other main cast in that same amount of time too.
That was their first reunion. Whenever you got in that final episode, when Diane or whichever one said what if this is the last time we see each other, I believe it probably is.
Yeah, I think it was Bojack, and then Diane just kind of looked away and was quiet.
And that is gut wrenching,
yeah,
but very true. Just from drifting apart, and from while they obviously care about each other, Bojack was responsible for a lot of the darkest parts of Diane's life, and that is a hard thing to separate.
Well, it's just the kind of things Bojack did in general, even if they weren't directly with Diane, just the way her character is, it makes sense that she would want to distance herself from just based on that alone.
And it's interesting, Diane, I think, is my favorite character of the whole show. There's so many characters that are in the running for that. They're all fantastic. But I think Diane is my favorite. And I do think the Diane-Bojack relationship is so interesting because you've seen as this whole narrative went on, Bojack is the exact type of person that Diane hates, and that Diane is against this whole toxic masculine dude who's just kind of uses everyone and is very selfish and everything. Everything that she's against is all embodied in him, but they're friends, so it's you always see Diane struggle with that, and then you kind of finally saw that come to a head whenever Princess Carolyn and her are talking about like how are they going to get out of this situation with the reporters coming at him, and Diane's like, no.
Yeah.
Fuck no, I'm not helping you. Like I'm like, you're my friend and I care about you, but I'm not standing with you on this. And like that, I expected that. That's where that was going, but it was still like.
And even Princess Carolyn, then it seemed less Bojack, you're my friend, and more like it's my job. And
which was almost kind of convincing herself of that too.
I mean, and then we got that at the end where pretty much. When Bojack's like, so, come back after I'm out, right? Yeah. And she's like, yeah. And they kind of talk some, and she kind of warms up to him a little bit more, but not in a way like, I'm not going to be your manager. I'll give you someone's number, pretty much.
Yeah, like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Yeah. Which was like, I mean, there was a moment, but right before that, where Princess Carolyn was obviously getting kind of romantically pulled back into Bojack for a little bit there, like right before that interview, before the first interview and even after the first interview, she kind of was doing that, and then I feel like Princess Carolyn in that moment kind of reflects us too, because we see like Bojack's doing the right thing. We want Bojack. We want to pull for Bojack. We like Bojack despite all the terrible things he's done. It's like, look, he's like making up for it. He's doing the right thing, and then immediately falls back into his same character flaws and the same mindset. And you kind of see Princess Carolyn finally in that moment. She like finally after 6 seasons kind of has the full clarity of, okay, I should, this is who he is, and I can't be a part of that. And that's kind of what the audience does in that same moment, because as soon as he went back for that second interview, I'm like, all right, the world's going to come crumbling down on Bojack, and it should. And he deserves everything that's coming his way. I love him.
Second interview scene was great.
Oh, so good. It was so like anxiety inducing. How it would just like it would like cut up to like a like close up of the reporter, and it would cut to like Bojack being all nervous and everything, and then like flipping over to Princess Carolyn. It was just like it was very anxiety inducing, but super well done. We'll talk about like specific things, but in general, I think this ending was something that. I think before the season, we had all talked about how, this is going to be a gut-wrenching into the show. It's going to be like super sad and depressing. And it is in a way, but I kind of appreciated that they kind of went against your expectations. And this was a lot more of a kind of subdued, like, this is how life is and life goes on type of ending.
Yeah, the more we get away from it, I'm really glad they didn't go with the whole Bojack kills himself or even maybe Bojack dying type thing. And
this is something I definitely want to like dive into, because I don't know if I'll ever like have my mindset completely decided on this, because I think there is a lot of talk online about how episode 15.
Yeah. Well, what I just said is my feelings on how maybe they did it aside, just the general thing of what I meant by that.
Yeah, and I agree with you, broad strokes. I 100% agree with you. And this is where I kind of want to get to, like, I still don't know how I feel about it, because I totally get the mindset that, like, I do think in a way the finale weakens episode 15. Because when episode 15 ended, I was crying on the couch. Like when the heartbeat thing went dead and the credits were just rolling, I was like a wreck.
Yeah.
That was like the most emotional the show had ever gotten me.
That's obviously the 15 is controversial. That would have been more controversial if this wasn't a Netflix show where you can go to the next episode immediately. Like imagine you had to wait a week.
And if you waited a week and then they were so cavalier about, he's still alive, and if that had been a week worth of anticipation just for that, I feel like it would be even more controversial. But I was left like, on paper, I think I should hate that. I should hate that there was like such a big like, oh my god, that like monumental drop on you, and then the very next episode it's like, he's alive, and then the show's over. Like on paper I should hate that, but I kind of didn't. I was in the moment, I was like, and still even now I still kind of like it, but I can't exactly explain why, because I do think, even though I like it, I do think the finale makes episode 15 weaker. It's still an insanely strong episode, and I do think they like tied it in. Especially when you had Diane talking to him, because I think at that moment they realized that the audience is probably a little angry or confused, being like, "All right, well, what was with that whole thing last episode? If you were just going to pull it away," and I think at least for me, when Diane said, like, you called me and I thought you were dead, and I was like, I was calling people for 7 hours, I was not sleeping, I was like losing my mind and everything, and how that almost wrecked her good life. Like that ended up like causing her to kind of like spiral back into depression, and she stayed in Chicago and almost lost Guy.
Yeah.
That's when it kind of hit me. It was like, okay, that really does, like, that was kind of the single thing that drove the wedge in their friendship away, was that whole night in that moment, you know. Yeah. So I think it still had stakes.
Yeah. I think that was the final nail in the coffin thing. I think she was kind of done anyway, but that was just like her completely like, no, I definitely cannot do this anymore.
And it's kind of part of her arc too, of just like kind of identifying the things that make her depressed, and like identifying the things that make her happy, and how she needs to allow herself happiness and allow herself to cut those things out of her life.
Yeah, you know? I do like it for Diane's arc, and it kind of the end. I think the time skip helps her kind of realizing, like she said, you know, always kind of like, you know, remember, cherish my time in California or whatever, but it's kind of like, it's not for me type thing. And even kind of through the series, you kind of got that she's kind of the odd person out of all this. Mm-hmm. So seeing like, this is the life that she wants to earn, that's right for her.
Yeah, and it's so cool because it's like the life that she shunned all the time. She was like, no, I need to be making a difference. I need to be like showing my experience. I need to be making a change and everything. And she had to come to grips with like, it's okay if you don't. It's okay for you to live life for yourself and for you to be happy. And it's okay if you don't like lift the world up in the process.
Yeah, and also kind of learning that you can change the world for the better, just not necessarily in the way that she thought. So like in the most hard-hitting ways, just being a children's book writer.
Yeah, and you had the people coming up saying like she was an inspiration to her and stuff, and like, man, it was just like that was just such an awesome way. Like her arc was just so well done from top to bottom. Even though I didn't expect a lot of things that happened, it was just, I mean, it was really, really good.
One of those things like, man, I'm glad they did this and pulled the trigger on her and Mr. Peter just being Denzo.
Yeah, because also like it's a testament to the show how relatively little time we've had with a Guy. And then we were already like, whenever she said, well, my used to be boyfriend, I was like, no, come on. And then obviously revealed they're married, which was, I was like, oh, okay, thank God. I mean, but I think that's a testament to like, you legitimately like really cared about the relationship. And he was such an awesome character. I mean, he was only introduced this season, right? Yeah, in the first part. So not that long ago, but it was just very, very well done.
Indeed. There's a funny little story for, I guess, the audience as far as Guy goes. I remember we were talking some, and you're like, yeah, what's Diane's boyfriend? Or what's that guy's name? It's like, Guy. It's like, yeah. You thought I was joking with you at first, like, no, it's Guy.
And he said, and his son is Sonny.
And his ex-wife is Lady.
They know what
or something doing. Like that. Something like Lady.
They probably knew that this exact conversation was going to happen. That was really funny. Well, we've definitely talked a lot about Diane. I kind of like steer the conversation that way, and because she's very tied into the end of this, and just to kind of like that shot of them on the roof too, and just kind of the full circle thing of them sitting on that roof, and that song at the end was just so good. But let's definitely talk about some of the other characters, because I legitimately think they were all like, everyone's arc was phenomenal, even the ones that were kind of like people say were dropped, but I don't really think they are. Like, I think Hollyhock is like one of the
we'll have to get
examples.
To that not now. Or
we can get to that right now. Right now. We can talk about whatever we're going to talk about.
Yeah. Well, Hollyhock's whole thing of she's kind of out for most of the first half of the season, if I remember correctly. She's kind of
the first half, I think so.
And then you get that last episode of the first half where none of the main cast is there besides the openings. the opening thing, and it's just all these side characters. And then at the end of Hollyhock's thing, she learns some bad stuff about Bojack.
Yeah.
You get into the first part of the second half of the season, and she's just kind of distant and kind of wanting to keep away, I think, understandably. And then it just gets as more. She's kind of in the background for a lot of it, but
that's also kind of the point.
No, I agree. It makes sense in this context, and then we don't even see her reaction to a lot of stuff that's going on Bojack, like with the interviews and stuff, where obviously she's seeing it, everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
And then the last thing we see from her is a letter that Bojack read. We didn't even know what the letter said, but we know what it said.
And that's what I definitely disagree with some people on this. I've seen people say that, like, oh, they forgot about Hollyhock, or they like ran out of time for her or whatever. I don't think that at all. I think this was perfectly done and very like intentionally done, because whenever he got that letter, we all, if we really like stop and think about it, we all knew what that letter said.
Yeah.
Like, Bojack was holding on. Like, there was a reason why Bojack wasn't opening it immediately, because he knew it was bad. Because of course it's bad. I mean, Hollyhock, like, why would you want to be tied to this? Why would you not want to cut ties? He was, like, probably us as an audience were hoping it was going to be the miraculous she's on his side or something, but like that, no, it was not. And he knew it was not, and that's why. No. And we don't need to actually see the letter.
Yeah, what I'm saying. Yeah. Well, and just the whole thing with Hollyhock, I like how it goes against what you expect in these TV shows, where even if she was going to, be done with him, the fact that we didn't see the final conversation, we saw nothing, we did not hear the letter. It's normally if you're like, oh, we need the face-to-face conversation, or that's not really any finality.
Yeah, and I disagree.
Because again, the whole thing of that's real. Just that small thing, and it's just done.
Oh, and I think seeing Bojack's reaction to reading the letter is honestly way more impactful than getting like Hollyhock voiceover of that. I think seeing his reaction, and because the build up that whole episode, knowing that he has that in his pocket, and you kind of figure this is going to be another straw that breaks.
Another reason why, like, it makes sense for Hollyhock to potentially just end it for Bojack, especially in that way, is Hollyhock's more important to Bojack than Bojack is to Hollyhock for this whole thing, because Hollyhock is Bojack's, at that point, only family.
Yeah.
Especially when he really cared about it and actually had a good relationship with. When Hollyhock has, what was it, 8 dads? Yeah, 8 loving dads. So it's not like she was looking for a hole to fill with,
right,
for the family goes.
I mean, that's definitely like an exaggerated point, but that's supposed to be how it happens. And I thought it was very cool. She's busy at campus, so it made sense she didn't want to be there, but there was always like, I still think the ending of that first part of that season was still one of the most gut-wrenching drops this show has ever done, was like him revealing it's like, oh, it was Bojack Horseman, and boom, credits, like, holy fuck, everything's coming back. And it's like, you always knew this was a possibility, but here it is. It's even
I like that whole episode, the first part, because it is just all this bad shit that Bojack has done, and seeing the consequences, because again, one of those things, like, that stuff doesn't go away like it does in a TV show a lot of times.
Secret, like, silently, another one of the best characters in this whole thing was Gina.
Yeah.
And that last episode, seeing how like that whole experience has traumatized her, and you kind of see how Hollywood just this woman had a traumatic experience, but everyone's just being like, oh, she's being bitchy, she's being whatever, and it's like, God, that's just
a small thing we talked about later that you missed that I like is it wasn't in your face about it, but we saw Gina is successful because in the final episode, when Bojack and Mr. Peanut Butter in the diner, you see on a billboard her pretty much being in that universe version, like Wonder Woman.
Yeah, which is awesome. Yeah, that is really cool, because she was another.
So she's in the background, but it's a nice little thing of, hey, she probably still having these issues, understandably, but she's getting through them to the point where it's not holding her back.
Right. Yeah. She's learning to overcome it and get past it. Yeah. Which is, like, I'm glad that people have. And like, there are a decent amount of like relatively happy endings through this, but it's kind of like these people had to go through hell like a lot of times through Bojack, and like came out the other side a changed but better person. Like even Todd, I think Todd and Princess Carolyn both had pretty happy endings. And I also think like this moment or this arc and this moment in the season will kind of get drowned out in the like millions of other just crazy impactful things that happen this season. But Bojack showing up to like Todd's party and Todd turning him away, that's just something that Todd would not have done before. Like Todd is a changed person now too, and he's also identifying that I care about Bojack, but my life is worse. Like he is making my life like more stressful, and like I can't go back into this right now.
It's one of those subtle things that, you know, when you look at the series as a whole, you look at the more that Todd got away from Bojack in little ways, the more successful he got in everything and happier.
Yeah.
And then when Bojack got close again, things got worse, and then kept on going to the point now he has a girlfriend, he has a home, his relationship with his parents he has a relationship with them.
Right.
And yeah. He has a job he really likes.
It's just like Todd very, very easily could have just been comic relief character that never goes any further than that. And that's honestly how it would have been in like any freaking other show in the world.
Yeah, part of me wonders what they had the plan for Todd, because it seemed more like for the first little bit that is what they were going with him, but then they changed.
And that's what he's supposed to be. And I mean, but he's kind of, I mean, just like so many things in Bojack is taking a concept that you've seen troped out to no end and like actually like turning it on its head and like spinning it. And I think Todd is definitely one of those. Like he is the goofball joke character, and like it was like the writer saying, hey, yeah, we're going to make you like cry over this character. He's going to have like serious impactful things for like asexuality too. And there's just lots of like, even like freaking Todd is a very deep, awesome character. They're all great. Yeah.
I'm blanking on the name of his voice actor.
Aaron Paul.
Yeah, Aaron Paul. I was like, man, Aaron Paul's in two of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
I forget about that sometimes.
Yep. Dude's good. Dude's very, very, very good at what he does. Well, just talking about the different characters, I think we can also talk about Princess Carolyn. I think one of my favorite just visual storytelling things they've done in the whole show was that in part 1, whenever she was getting used to having Ruthie, and they did the whole thing where it was like a bunch of Princess Carolyns going all over the place. Like this team that makes this show is just so damn good at coming up with very unique ways to do like visual storytelling. I mean, the writing is amazing too, but like just complimenting Bojack's writing is not enough, because that visual team is just it's spot on.
They use the fact that this is an animated show very, very well.
Oh yeah.
Well, obviously, and not even just with those visual things, just the visual gags with, you know, half the characters being animals.
Yes. Yeah. But that's like, that whole like vibe there. I mean, the writing's really good, but like a lot of that you could not have captured nearly as well as that.
And
did.
Another good example from this season is Diane's episode in the second part with the writing drawing thing.
Yeah, both of those are very standout, because that was also and I mean especially the one with Diane. Again, Diane being my favorite character, and maybe this is another reason why like I could relate to a lot of things that Diane goes through, and a lot of, especially just because she's on more of a like writing creative side, and just the doubting yourself and thinking that, you know, no one cares what you think. Definitely you definitely could like, you know, fall into that very quickly. Even freaking making content for this channel, I've had to go through that in my own head many times. It's a, you know, you are your own worst enemy a lot of times in those things.
So I gotta pause real quick. I just noticed on your thing to the side, to the lower right, there's a list called My Top 30 Anime Series, and there's a picture of Rick and Morty.
Oh boy,
is Bojack an anime?
Bojack is the best anime.
Bojack, best shonen protagonist.
Best shonen protagonist.
What in the world? What?
Why
is Rick and Morty on an anime? What?
Batman the animated series and South Park.
Okay, this is his favorite animated series, which I guess fine.
That's really funny.
That's not anime.
Family Guy is my favorite anime, I must say. Yeah. Okay. Well, The Adventures of Tintin is definitely my favorite anime. Yeah, that is top tier, you guys. Yeah. That is top tier.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that was worthy of stopping the recording for. I'm glad you pointed that out. Oh boy. What were we talking about?
Well, we were talking about we started this whole thing with Princess Carolyn in that episode in particular, so we can back to her and her arc in general during this season. Yeah,
which was very obviously it started out with Ruthie and just her trying to manage her work-life balance, and I honestly thought this would end with her just cutting the work part completely out altogether, but it was kind of I like how she found a way to live, live with both.
Yeah, I'm glad too, because work is a big part of Princess Carolyn's character. It could have been a good story, obviously, with that, but I think this trying to find a workaround, and also how it entwined with Todd's storyline.
Yeah, and I think it would have been a little unsatisfying if it was she is a badass career woman who has to put it all aside.
And especially since she's kind of either there or about to reach her dreams, pretty much, as far as her career goes.
Yeah,
and at the end, she got it.
Yep,
and she also lived her dream. She's married.
Mm-hmm. Princess Carolyn is such an interesting, awesome character because you don't Princess Carolyn covered up for and set aside a lot of terrible shit that happened. I mean, Princess Carolyn is not completely clean, but it's very it's kind of that's what that PR world is all about, and you do kind of finally start to see her come to terms with that, like we already talked about with Bojack. I think in that moment she stopped and be like, I have helped this man get away with so many terrible things, and you're starting to see the repercussions of that. You're seeing that he is not changing, he's not growing as a person because I keep covering up for him and keep pushing, getting him out of the shit so he doesn't learn.
I'm just too good at my job. I'm trying to remember I can't remember if they said anything about it, or it might just me thinking. Projecting or something. Do you think it has anything to do with Rufy as far as why she's this is bad because now she has a daughter and it's kind of I put this stuff to it, but I want my daughter to go.
I think 100%. I think whenever she's thinking about the daughter I'm putting up in the world, and you even see Bojack with whoever the friend that he made that started pulling him into the bad direction, just him and just so many other people we've seen in this, and even that interview she's just talking about that interview or whatever, she talks about the grooming thing. I'm like, ugh, it's true, it's fucking true. And I totally think that could have a very big, even if it's not overtly said. I mean, I think there's definitely that's kind of implied. So I think her arc was awesome. I'm glad that she ended up I did think I didn't know if back in season 5 if she would end up back with the father, Ruthie's father, but I'm kind of glad that it's nope, she moved on, and it's she's just a badass. She's a badass character.
Yep.
It was
Where do you mean? Wait, get with Ruthie's father? What?
Or the mouse guy.
Oh, the mouse guy.
Yeah.
I was he was talking about having a kid.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we ever saw Ruthie's father.
Right. Yeah.
She's adopted.
Yeah. You're right. The other guy.
The other guy.
Not her father, but the other guy. Yeah.
Nope. It was all right in front of her the whole time.
Okay. I guess Mr. Peanut Butter. We have not talked about Mr. Peanut Butter. I'm interested. How did you expect the whole pickles thing to end? Where was this as to your expectations?
So it ended about the way I expected, them breaking up, especially after the cheating thing happens. I don't see any other way that's the ending. And they were pushing that hard that this was probably not going to work out. So it's not I guessed it type thing or expect that kind of thing. But I didn't expect it to technically end the way it did so abruptly. And that was hilarious.
It was, and we're broke up forever.
And it was so quiet too that some people probably missed it.
Yeah, he was off screen. He was
that was great.
I had the full rage going into this. I'm like, okay, yeah, obviously this is not gonna last. They're gonna break up and everything. But there was a point in the middle of part 2 where I was like, holy shit, are they gonna stay together? It was is that gonna be kind of the twist of this? Is that you all thought this relationship was doomed, but they're actually gonna stay together? And then they didn't, which I also think was very I think that could have been just a complete depression, terrible downspin for Mr. Peanut Butter, but I kind of liked how this ended, where Mr. Peanut Butter, he's like, I'm single and I'm happy.
Yeah. I think that's a good way for his arc, because it's kind of been the whole thing throughout the whole thing. His life is a circle as far as getting married, divorced, getting married, divorced, and he's about to go through it for the 4th time. And the fact that he's kind of like, you know what? Let's stay single for a little while.
And it's so like, again, that's so reminiscent of people we know in real life, but it's in this larger than life cartoon character. But it really does fit because he is Mr. And again, Mr. Peanut Butter could have been another one that he's just like this aloof idiot who's like pure of heart, but he's aloof and he just goes on and everything. But that's not really what he is completely. Like like I'm glad that like you had multiple seasons of Mr. Peanut Butter just being like the goofy idiot, just going on bumbling through life. But then you finally started to see like the repercussions of that and how he kind of uses that for his own benefit and like uses that to take advantage of people and to, you know, like cheat on his wife and do all these other things because he's just... it is unbelievable how deep every single one of these characters is. Yeah. And I think Mr. Peanut Butter.
I mean, yeah, because like we're talking about with Todd, he could just be a joke. Mr. Peanut could be the same way up to a point and just kind of be a tool for drama for Diane in the story when he was more than that.
Yeah, and I mean, he started out as basically just Bojack hates this guy. Like, he was full of shut up, won't leave me alone.
He's kind of like a mirror version of Bojack, where they're both big sitcom stars, and obviously they made a joke of pretty much the same show. But he's more happy-go-lucky and all that, and generally seems happy, outwardly.
And like, can we just talk for a second about? I think one of my favorite conversations in this whole season was that last phone call with Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter. Whenever, like, wherever she was like, I forgot what had just happened, but it was like I guess post breakup for them. So like Mr. Peanut Butter, I think, was definitely making that phone call, kind of hoping to reignite something. Yeah. But then it didn't. But it wasn't like a sad scene. It was I'm genuinely happy for you, and they obviously still have emotions for each other. You're not with someone for that long and shed all emotions. That just does not happen. And I thought that line when like Diane said, I really think if we met now things would be different, but Mr. Peanut Butter said if we met now we wouldn't be the people we are now, you know. And that's, it was just so powerful that like they both helped each other get to this point where they're both happy but very independent. Like they're probably not going to talk.
I know we're going to probably get to it, but it's related to Mr. Peanut Butter, that surprise episode where it's just all the gags like for the whole thing. They're all in that. I think that's the surprise one. Where it's just all of them hiding through the whole time.
The surprise party.
That's so good.
So the show was able to like go right down the middle between that like a hilarious just wacky cartoon and a better drama than any actual drama with real human people. It's unbelievable. Just like we've talked about so many times, I will be doing a full rewatch of this because even in just one fucking season, there's just so many standout things. And then you think throughout the years, like the free churro episode and the underwater episode and the stupid piece of shit Showstopper, which is the most gut-wrenching episode probably in the entire thing. There's just so freaking many of them. It's unbelievable.
Indeed.
Well, do you have other big topics you want to get off your chest about just the wrapping up of Bojack and just this incredible show coming full circle?
Technically have Bojack's his arc, but we could end on that.
We could end on that. Yeah, I guess we have not. This is also kind of a testament to the show that we have talked for 33 minutes and barely talked about the actual guy the show is named after. Yeah. Because the side characters mean a whole lot, and they are definitely the backbone of the show.
But when I hear people say they like Bojack but can't stand anyone's storyline but Bojack, I'm like,
how do you watch the show? Like, how?
Yeah. I mean, because obviously Bojack's the focus, but there's a lot of time given to all of the other, four main characters.
Yeah, and like, it's kind of like Bojack's influence is on all of them, but like their stories are very much a part of Bojack's stories. You kind of don't have one without the other, and they're like, legitimately, they're the backbone of the show. And like, I think it was season 5. You had like, Bojack wasn't even in it until like episode 3 or something. I remember it was like for a long time, it was like just the side characters. and you weren't like, oh, come on, where's Bojack? You're like,
yeah, I think
no.
they did. Yeah, I have trouble remembering, especially for the early seasons. I think they did something similar to this, where an episode, was focused on a singular character, where sometimes other characters would be in there, but generally, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we dive about Bojack's thing, because the thing I would want to do is go through and talk about kind of standout parts or standout episodes or something, or stuff in general, but that would also tie into the whole Bojack storyline. So.
Yeah. Well, we can just go straight into that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's obviously we're talking mostly about part 2, because that's the one we just saw, and part 1 we saw back in October. But I do think like back then the whole rehab arc was very strong too, and it was just like, of course Bojack goes to rehab and ends up with a shitty rehab teacher that's.
Yeah. He was a therapist. He was a therapy horse.
He is a therapy horse.
So he was allowed to tell everyone his deepest dark secrets.
Yeah, that whole arc was really good, and another visual thing, the like vodka bottle thing where they did the space effect on it and everything, that was again just like, it's a weird way. I would never think to use that as like the allure of alcohol for an alcoholic and a depressed person or something, but it worked really well, where it just almost felt like this was this like mythical item or something that was. I don't know. It just worked really well. Then we also, I mean, not talking about Diane, but just I do think the introduction of Guy and I was just looking like down the episode. I do think that was also really strong with her like going and like trying to do stories or whatever, and wanting to do hard hitting stories, but then they only wanted like fluffy bullshit. This is very much talking on media in general, which was very interesting. I don't know. What did you want to pinpoint back here?
I don't know. So we're going to go through and just kind of talk about kind of things. And the thing, like example, the surprise episode was.
That was a very big standout too. And I mean, Pickles was another character that like could have been a very a minor character, whatever, and started out being like, oh, she's just basically this ditzy young person or whatever. But she definitely, you end up caring about her a lot too. You see her kind of like growing through this, and she's not just a complete idiot. You see, there's times where like she starts to be able to see just straight through Mr. Peanut Butter's bullshit, and she could have been a character everyone hated, but like very easily.
I'm sure there's some that did.
And like maybe early on, I don't think you were meant to like really like her. She was kind of a punchline early on. But Bojack is very good about introducing characters that's like, hey, look, this is a punchline. Isn't this funny? Oh shit, now you care about them, don't you? It's like, oh shit, now it's getting real, isn't it? It's
like, we're going to do real stuff with these like, wacky characters.
Oh, you used to just laugh at them, and now you're crying.
Yeah.
But that whole like visual thing of just the juxtaposition between like these two people having this real fight of like finding out that he cheated, and it's like a real dramatic like argument that could have just been a dramatic argument, but it's also that juxtaposed with everyone like trying to hide everywhere and bust out. God, it's so good. It's so good. And like Bojack talking on the stream or something, where he was like getting her to do things by like talking in the stream chat.
I'm trying to remember. I think the exact thing I remember was one character is like, who's bad with tight space. If I remember right, they got shoved into the closet or something. It's like, oh no, not again.
I think it was like his. Was that his AA person or like his rehab person that had to go there with him? So, and he
I think I said another standout thing from the first half. I'm sure we're going to be talking about more for standout things with the second half, considering that's more current in our mind. But the whole kidney thing with Todd and his stepdad was.
Just
the whole like, oh, this is a Todd adventure, and then you're bringing around this norm. He's like, what is going on? Like, and then the ending joke of Todd, I get how everything works out for you. You're white.
I kind of forgot about that line. That was really good. I kind of forgot about that.
I think I really like that episode because it works because it is Todd's wacky bullshit, and it's kind of the last episode we got where it was completely Todd wacky bullshit.
Yeah, because he was becoming a lot more of a mature actual.
Yeah, and and also it did that as well as reconnecting Todd and his stepdad.
Yeah, which was an arc that I really wasn't expecting that to happen and go as deep as it was. Mm-hmm. I had not really I think there was allusions to it, but I had not really ever really thought about Todd's parents, much before then.
They had definitely mentioned that they kicked him out and all that, but they haven't gotten. Really
but that was just he's the stoner loser.
Yeah.
Of course they kicked him out, and that could have just never been touched on. It'd be like, oh yeah, he's the stoner loser who got kicked out, but they're not satisfied in leaving it in that loose, and it's no, we're gonna have this
I guess we get to it. Maybe we go through the. As we get more once we get through this. I've seen some people argue this is rushed, and I can maybe see it to a point to where I feel like the pacing of the season was really good, but I can also see the whole thing of it felt like for some of these characters, a lot more of their story progressed in this season than literally the rest of the series. You know what I'm saying? Well, with Todd, stuff happened to him throughout this thing, but the whole thing with his parents was introduced in the latter part of the first half, and then it got done.
Yeah, I could totally see
and
that.
And kind of same thing with Diane. She was Mr. Peanut Butter for the whole series, and then she gets here, and that's when she finds her stuff.
There are quite a few things that were introduced and resolved in this season.
Yeah,
even Guy and Diane. Even though I was
getting at
even though by the end it felt like Guy was a character that we had for so long.
Oh, I think what helped is this is a longer season. I mean, it's only technically 4 more episodes,
but they jam pack a lot of stuff.
They jam packed in, and I'm not saying there was filler in other seasons, but I think they used their time really wisely.
Yeah, which anyone outside who doesn't know, they were planning on having more seasons of this. Netflix told them this has to be your last season. They gave them extra.
We'll give you more episodes.
Yeah,
we'll let you split it up.
So the whole rushing thing is not out of nowhere. It is definitely a possibility because they had planned on more than this.
Yeah.
And I can see it. I don't think I wouldn't say that it feels rushed because legitimately I think every arc pays off beautifully. Yeah. But I think if they had more time, they would have spread
I think it's more of if we did a rewatch, we would notice the pace
probably
once it gets to this point goes a lot faster with
ramping up, but it was nowhere near Game of Thrones level of we're hitting the 5 times fast forward button and we're just
this isn't even actually good, so
that's another big shit difference between the two.
Remember when so-and-so became king?
I do remember when so-and-so became king. Unfortunately, I do.
Yeah. And I already said a quick one while he's away. The last episode of the first part, where it was literally none of the main cast and just all these side characters.
And then you kind of see why.
What I loved about this episode is this is one of those episodes that a big reason why it works as well as it does is because this is the last episode of this part. They know we're gonna have to wait. Yeah. So they do this hey, everything's looking good for Bojack throughout this thing, and things are setting out well. Because the last episode, the episode before this, I think is when he learns he's going to be a professor and all that. So it's things are looking up for him. And this episode's things are crashing down, and it makes sense. Now we have to wait.
And I remember having those conversations. As soon as that happened, I was talking to you, and I was like, "Man, again, you love Bojack so much, and you're seeing all these good things. You're seeing him actually make real changes and actually trying to become a better person, and you're so happy for him about that. But then when that ending comes, it's but this is I can't say this is wrong.
Yeah.
Whenever they're coming after him for these terrible things he's done, it's both of those things can be true. I can be very happy for him trying to make a better life, but also the things that he has done are unforgivable. And he has completely Bojack so desperately wants to just flip a switch and undo everything he did, but there are people whose lives are completely ruined because of some of his actions. And I was talking about yep, this is how this is going to end. Is Bojack is going to be a good person be taken down. In reality, Bojack was only a few steps away from diving right back down into what he always was, which makes sense because this show in general, through all the different seasons, kind of has a repetitive nature in a good way. Usually when you say repetitive, it's bad. It's repetitive in a storytelling sense because it shows how easy it is when you are surrounded by this Hollywood culture, you are a celebrity and everyone's propping you up. It's so easy to like, you start to do good things and you're getting all this positive reinforcement and that immediately goes to your head and you start like diving back down into your low again. Everyone gets mad at you, so then you start building back up.
Better. And then, I'm good now? Okay.
Exactly. And I mean, I have 100% seen that in people in my real life. Like addicts and other people in my real life or like family members who have done terrible things or whatever. A lot of these people, they love the positive reinforcement when it's like, oh, they're doing better in their life. And then that it's just that cycle that goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And you get into this last season. And when it goes up and then back down again, I think us and the characters in the show are like, all right, that's it. That was the last valley that I'm going on this journey with you, on. Yeah. And yeah, so that last part of part one was just
I also didn't. I'm forgetting his name. The guy who told Hollyhock. I literally forgot who he was until like the last second. It's like, oh shit, it's him.
yeah. I did not realize either.
I'm sure that was also part of the point of they didn't want you to. I mean, if you figured it out, they were like, okay, cool on you, but. Yeah, probably expected not many people to.
Which is so cool because that was just kind of an episode back in season 2. Like things all the way back then are coming into play, and it was kind of like which one of the many things that he did is going to be the one, and it was Sarah Lynn, which makes sense, but it was
that makes sense that'd be the big one.
Yeah, that was the biggest one, and the one that like I can't forgive him for. No one can forgive him for. It was just truly terrible, but. That was what a way to end that first part. And I remember like you walking in and being like, I just feel deflated. I feel like I need a drink. And then I have to say also kind of going on with that. And like you knew as soon as this first part started, I liked that they didn't, at least correct me if I'm wrong, but they didn't like immediately pick up the journalist chasing after him. They let you see him at the university and seeing his life kind of being happy. And like you were really happy for him. When I saw him teaching those classes, I was like, yeah, of course Bojack would be an awesome professor because he has so much experience, so much charisma, a lot of talent. You know, it's like it makes sense that like students would love him and everything. And it's just you're so happy for him, but you just always knew in the back of your mind through that whole first episode, it's like
we know it's coming.
They're coming.
They're coming, and when even disregarding the reporters, the whole thing with Hollyhock is like, no, it's gonna come crashing down quicker because we're seeing the Hollyhock stuff.
Yeah, Hollyhock was also the constant reminder of like, as good as this is,
it's a creepin'. I also like the gag where Bojack is like. Tell the students like no this isn't working like the old man stuff, and they bust into its AA stuff.
It's really funny. All these repeated gags.
I'm glad that guy won best old man.
Yeah, you come in. They're gonna cast an actual old man.
But he'll be great once he's actually old.
Then he's
gonna play young.
Then he's gonna play young. Yeah. Did you appreciate all the rugby?
Of course I did.
And the lack of rugby knowledge.
Yep.
Well, it's really funny. I just like that Hollyhock was playing rugby too. It's just really funny to me. It's good. I like it a lot. That was it. That we just had to touch on rugby.
Of course. Let's see. Yeah, and then the next episode's the whole thing with Diane. And her writing block and all that, and her depression.
And I also think it was obviously I don't have like firsthand experience with it, but like I know a lot of people who have, but in the whole cycle of her like not wanting to take her depression medicine, but like needing it, and just that kind of like crash down afterwards, it was like, it's brutal because I mean like I definitely like I've heard enough about the like feeling like you need this but kind of hating the like fake emotions that you feel like you have because you are taking it, but then if you don't take it, could be worse, and you just feel like there's no winning.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's all I'll say.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. And I think that that was one of 1,000 things that this show has like touched on in a very cool way.
That's where the reporters go to Penny.
And the reporters were awesome too. The reporters were so good. I could just listen to the woman talk for like an hour. It was just so satisfying just hearing her like talk.
You're from Fresno.
He's like, why do you talk like that? None of us talk like that. Oh my god.
So good.
So good. What we think about the Lazy Susans, and what was the other thing about it? It was Lazy Susans, and what was the other thing about the restaurant? I know he was on the cover. Tiny plates and Lazy Susans.
Yes.
Yeah, not much to say on that, but it was pretty good.
Yep. Joey Pogo.
It was pretty good. Joey Pogo.
Yep. And well, that's Bojack also trying to get together or whatever with the whole we're dealing with the whole call and all that, and that.
Wait, what now? I'm sorry.
That episode, I think it's the end of the good damage one, where maybe not. I can't remember or whatever. I think that's the episode with the tiny plates or whatever is when Bojack's trying to figure out what to do with the whole, because he got the call from what's the dear lady's name? Yes, like what is this? And he's
Penny.
Penny's the daughter.
Yeah, no, Penny's the daughter. I was trying to. I don't know.
Yeah. But trying to figure out with Diane and Princess Carolyn, I believe that's the episode, like what to do.
Yeah, and I guess that was that early. A lot of things happened this season.
Yeah. Next episode, the interview.
That was pretty terrible.
Xerox over Xerox, and then later Bojack gets sued for that line.
Which was really funny. It was really funny. This is one thing that I actually haven't thought about. There is probably one thing that I would say is, at least to me, maybe the standout of a rushed season potential is, I will say, I thought whenever at first I was just looking at the Horny Unicorn episode, whenever you had the guy, I can never remember his name, but the guy that like started influencing Bojack there, whenever they were in that diner and they were having the conversation, and he was talking about like, he basically was pulling the like, well, everyone gets offended over everything anymore. Like, guys like us, they just want to tear us down and everything. And I had this sinking thing in my stomach where I'm like, oh God, he has become like, it was like, and again, just commentary on our like modern culture, how like toxic men are like reinforced on this because they're like, oh yeah, culture's just bringing us down, whatever. So they're like turned into just racist, xenophobic assholes or alt-right assholes because it's just a perpetual cycle. They feel like they're being put down and they're seeing themselves as a victim, and it kind of is just an endless churning thing where like everyone's against me, so I'm like, I'm just and him say like the Horny Unicorn thing being kind of, you've seen this star fall from grace, and now he's doing this like vulgar stuff. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm wording this super well.
No, I get what you mean. Or I guess what you're getting at is you were worried that they were going to have the whole thing. Yeah, Bojack's an alt-right light or alt-right.
I wasn't like worried as far as like they shouldn't do it. I was like, this makes sense, and it guts me that this makes sense.
I mean, worried as in you don't want Bojack to do that.
Exactly, yeah. But I will say, I don't think that had as much of an arc and as much staying power as it probably should have. Like I had that gut feeling, but then like that whole section was kind of over the next episode pretty much. Yeah, I think if they had 2 seasons, I think that probably would have been a whole thing. And it would have been something where like Diane confronts him. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, who are you? Who is this? And
I think it's a small thing, but as far as like what it did for the story as a whole, as far as the ending of that, I think it kind of sets up his comeback, because even then at the end they were talking about the Horny Unicorn.
Yeah,
about him doing that once he gets out.
Yeah.
So I think it might be more setting that up, maybe. I don't know.
But that's like, but I feel like it had more of a potential to be like. I mean, that's just used as a way for him to like just keep doing movies. I think it had a potential to be a like Bojack is falling from grace, and when you have like everyone hates him, like he can't even go to the drive-through without people like shitting on him and everything. And that whole dilemma of like this hate is deserved, but it's also like, where does he go from here? Mm-hmm. If everyone in the universe hates him, if everyone in the universe hates you, everywhere you go, you just see hate for you at all times. Even if it's deserved, that's going to mess with your head, because a lot of these celebrities for the Me Too movement and everything else, we like rightfully so shit on them and their career ends and everything. But like for us in the public, that's the last we see of them. That happens, they go down, and then we forget about them other than we talk about every now and then, like, oh, yeah, he's one of those that did the shitty thing. We don't realize that person goes on living a life. Yeah. That person deals with this day in and day out. Not saying they don't deserve it, but they do. That is something that mentally they have to deal with, the fact that every single place they go, and probably all their like old friends hate them now because they've seen all this terrible things.
Yeah, kind of you're getting at, besides like the kind of anti-Me Too SJW crowd or whatever. Yeah, fine, saw that. No, I don't. I agree with you. They probably were thinking of having more of an arc with that. Like if they did have more seasons. That's where it
felt like it was going, and it was not going to be a pleasant thing. But that's where I think that there could have been a version of this to where like that was more of.
Yeah, I think there's another way of like just hitting on it a little bit. Like again, like they probably wanted to do more because again they wanted to do multiple seasons. Even if they had one extra season other than the one they got, and there was just 24 episodes, like 2 12-episode seasons, that'd still be 8 more episodes where they could have done more of that.
And that's where I feel like in the original design doc, I feel like this probably did. Because like he ends up shedding away from that, but I feel like he shed away from that too fast. Yeah. To where I got the gut-wrenching like realization of what was about to happen, and then I feel like it never really actually happened. It just kind of like... They had that one scene with his daughter, and then he went to the frat party, and that was kind of it. And then he just kind of moved on, you know. So, I mean, it's weird for me to say like they shouldn't have done that, but that could have been like just how they've commented on abortion and Me Too and so many other things like this, and the Thoughts and Prayers episode, all those other things. This could have been yet another thing where it's like, holy fuck, they're commenting on that too, you know, and commenting with Bojack, and it made sense. That was the worst part of it, is that I saw him going down that, like, you know, anti-SJW route thing or whatever, and it made sense to me. And it's like, I'm going to hate this character by the end of this.
Yeah, they kind of toured around with her a little bit, like, you know, doing that stuff. And then we mentioned before, after the interview, where he kind of goes on a little alt-righty type rant.
Yeah, where he starts to sound suspiciously like, you know... Yeah. Some of those people that started yelling, and just how like, the world's against me. Like, how am I supposed to be able to, like, everyone just wants me to fail. How am I to, you know, just the very victim blame, you know, like victimizing yourself, even though you've kind of dug this hole for, you know.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think they would have done more at that if they had more episodes to toy with. Yeah. Unfortunately, they did not. Let's see.
I just saw that and I was like, oh, that's actually one that I can actually see. But yeah, at some point, I mean, we can view from halfway down. We definitely have to talk about like obviously. If there's something else before then.
Talking about the Angela episode where he goes in that whole thing with old producer, where they sign the contract to take him out of it.
With how like ominous she was being, that's not where I expected it to go, but I liked it. Like I thought that was very symbolic of the, like, you know,
and it's just kind of the more cartoony, over the top way of when celebrities get to the point where Bojack was, they try to remove him every way as possible, but because it's Bojack, the way they did it, we're literally removing you from the show and keeping it as it is.
I mean, it was kind of like the Kevin Spacey thing, being removed from whatever that movie that was about to come out when all those things came out from him, and they completely recasted him in the last second and everything. It reminded me of that type of thing.
Yeah, again, over the top way. It's like, no, we're just removing you.
Keeping it.
It's just a shorter thing.
It's really funny.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead. We're probably already...
Well, we can also talk about, because it's in that Angela episode, just real quick, before we get to that, because that'll probably be... We're in... Todd and his mother, because that's that episode too, where that whole little scene and
with her Frito pies.
Yeah, Margaret Martindale, like her swan song for the series.
Yeah, which was a very good one. I'm glad you found
one of those characters where she was. I mean, she's been a gag thing for this whole thing, but it's like a little thing. It's like, oh, might be like a one and done thing. She keeps on going. She had her own little arc.
It was really good. Yeah, like for her being like one of the most minor of the reoccurring characters, but I think she was used so well.
Yeah.
She just keeps coming out as this crazy badass. Well, it was really good.
Yeah. And
yeah, I think that was touching when he finally does have that relationship with his mom. You know?
Mm-hmm. And it was like, well, I got to the point where she didn't want to be away from him necessarily. She was kind of just afraid in general.
Yeah.
After everything.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Twice.
And now they're doing crazy schemes with babies in mech suits or something.
Because, of course, it's Todd and his family.
Yep. So, yeah, the view from halfway down.
Yeah, like I said before, I think episode 16 makes this one weaker as far as staying power, but when you look at the view from halfway down on its own, has to be one of the best episodes of this entire show.
Of course.
I mean, like top 3, maybe best. It's up there. It is like absolutely just from the time it starts, you know where this is going, or you at least have a good feeling of where this is going, and even predicting it does not prepare you at all. Whenever he was talking to his dad and his dad flips the cigarette and you see Bojack in the pool, that I talk about all the different like heart dropping through my chest moments, there was none more than that. It was just like I got punched in the gut.
Yeah. Well, that being a dad thing is weird because it's technically Secretariat, but they in the dream world he was his dad, and Secretary even pointed out, like, for some reason I'm your dad here.
But like honestly, that kind of makes sense to me. Just like as far as like dreams in your head, it doesn't always make sense. It's kind of weird. Why the hell was Zach Braff there? Dreams.
Because he's dead.
Unless he died in that earthquake episode.
I think he did.
He did die in that? Okay. Yeah.
Well, and Secretariat's speech. Or a little poem.
I need to listen to it again because it was just so... And like his acting like in the middle of that and with the door like coming closer and closer to him, it's just freaking chills.
Yeah.
Just as soon as just the ominous presence of that door in every single scene, and just all of their conversations just about death and everything like that, the conversations at that dinner table, and just the kind of foreboding that entire episode had, you were just like dreading where it was going at all times. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think enough can't be said about that. What did you think about?
No, I thought it was all great. Some of them just kind of, in a way, like we're getting some closure for a lot of the characters that are still alive. Getting some of that for the characters that have died throughout the series.
Yeah,
it's kind of getting a little of that. Was nice, and all the symbolism with their little talent show stuff as they go through the door.
Yep. I mean, Sarah Lynn's performance was also. Just, I don't know, really, really impactful. I mean, and yeah, it was a way of, like you said, to kind of like give, like Sarah Lynn gets like one last hurrah.
Yeah, Bojack's mom.
And Bojack's mom, yeah. Yeah.
It's characters that kind of been throughout this whole thing.
And even there was the cool thing with like the soldier that they all revered, and then whenever he like finally opened up about what actually happened, it's like, I didn't expect Bojack to be kind of touching on war heroes too, and the problem with that. But like,
kills. They were friendly fires though.
It's like, that's just a lot of times the people we revere as just war heroes were scared people who that whole thing. And then Ethan also was like, I mean, everyone in that whole scene was phenomenal.
So the more I get past, the more I am generally okay from this episode leading into the finale, because despite everything it's been obviously the max powerful if he did die, but this is still his vision before death. This is how he interpreted. He was still about to die, so it still makes sense that way.
And I do think you still, obviously, like you said, max impact of this single episode would have been if it ended how this ended, and that was how it went. That would have been max power. So we don't have max impact of this singular episode, but we do this. But you can't go on and say like, oh well, that the view from halfway down meant nothing, because it absolutely did. Like Bojack has been in a lot of these bad situations before, but I think Bojack, you see, even in the subtle ways that he's acting in that last episode, this man almost died. He was as close as you can possibly be to death.
So yeah, I think the difference is, and while this episode is still impactful and meaningful to the story, it is the wake up call for Bojack. Yes. Seeing all this, seeing how, even if it's his imagination, how he's, I guess, feels about death, as that scariness, and how people that he cared for and who were big in his life, how their interpretation or them dying was, and all that. So I think it scares, like, especially how he got there. Like, okay, I need to stop this, and we did see that. Like, he was even to the point of, to help keep him away from that. He kind of, I don't really think it was a joke or anything, but it's like, I should stay in prison. Yeah, keep myself in line.
I don't think he was completely joking, because he doesn't trust himself, and like I probably wouldn't trust myself either. With he's seen how far he's gone back and forth. But also one other like kind of sad thought that I just now thought about was, I also think the whole view from halfway down episode kind of proved to Bojack something that I don't think he necessarily knew was true. I think it proved to him that he doesn't want to die.
Yeah.
Because I'm not convinced that he didn't want to die. I think that episode showed him whenever he was faced with the thought of actually dying, he was fighting back against it, and it scared the hell out of him. When, I mean, you've seen Bojack's life and just like everything he's been through, like that might have been a wake up call. Not only that, like he was about to, like his decisions were about to kill him, and also that like no matter what his life is, he does still want to keep living. And I think, you know what I mean? I think that was kind of a wake up call there too, because like I think if asked about it, Bojack might not be like, might welcome death or might commit suicide, like we thought was definitely a potential outcome of this whole thing. But I think seeing him, like whenever he was coming to terms with like this is actually going to happen, and he didn't want that, it was just this primal instinct of like, I don't want to die. And again, like you said, the more you even talk about it here, I feel better and better about that whole arc, because the view from halfway down definitely has like that this episode is a very, very big factor of the Bojack we see in the finale. And just the Bojack we see in the finale seems like a very tired person, but like he's not the bad person he used to be, but he's also not this like perfect, cheery, everything's great person. Like admits, I might fall back again, but I think he's in the mindset now that like he knows what he has to do, and
I think he's at the point where he's kind of self-aware, understanding of like Princess Carolyn and Diane heavily hint at, I mean even Todd, either straight out say or heavily hint at, they want to do less with Bojack. They don't want the relationships will not go to the way they were, and he seems to be okay with that, in the sense of he understands and is like, this is the way things are.
And now. I think from the view from halfway down also being the thing that completely separates any chance of him and Diane having a friendship, pretty much. I mean, I think that's pretty clear with the way that she said that. Like, I think if it wasn't for that, their relationship might have been different, but that like single-handedly killed it. And I think that is another big difference that episode made, is that everyone is leaving him, and I truly believe that he's not going to pull them back into this like he always does. Like, he always pulls all of them, Princess Carolyn, Todd, Diane, and Mr. Peanut Butter, back into his life every single time, over and over again. And they go because they're his friends and he cares about them. But like, I truly believe now that like he's going to leave them alone. like he's gonna respect the distance that they want and everything, which is a very, very big character growth. Very big. I mean, it's subtle. It's not like crazy and it's not as flashy as a death or anything like that. But that's very big. That's something that like I think Bojack is going to learn to live on his own and like realize again he does not deserve pure happiness. He's not going to get pure happiness. No one has pure happiness, but he has a life and he's will do the best he can with what he has.
Not much at the end.
Yeah, and then that whole last episode I think was very well done. The Hollywood was good.
Yes.
Appreciate the Hollywood. And
swirl like I'm glad they didn't just split it back Hollywood.
Yeah,
Always be Hollywood.
We said like they have to be doing something. There's something.
Like, there's got to be some twist here. There's got to be some.
If you had stopped me, my guess would have been another O. Hollywood. That was good. And then Princess. I also really I've probably said way too many exchanges were one of my favorites because pretty much said all of them. But Princess Carolyn and him talking when they were dancing, and him saying like, "So I'm supposed to like talk you back into it or whatever," but you're not actually having cold feet. And she's like, "Oh, what would you do?" I thought that was very cute and very, again, it's kind of turning the like, this is what the flashy ending would be, but that's not life, No. This is
not the ending they are going to do, and the show is better for it.
Yeah. But you even get a glimpse in like Princess Carolyn, like she's like, yeah, I don't know. This might not be, Yeah. This is like, nothing in life is for sure, and I'm not going to be a fool and say that like everything is a lot and for sure, but like I'm happy right now, and that's what matters,
One thing I liked that episode, what you get to see the roof walking around, running around the wedding.
You can see what now?
Roofie.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like,
that's cool.
Growth, kid.
Yep. She's gonna be a badass and something else one day.
Yep.
And then that last scene, which we've already talked about a good bit, but him and Todd at the end was very cool too. I mean, like with all three of those characters, you had this great where it's like they all recognize that they had this connection, and they don't. It's like passing an old friend or something, and it's like you don't want to ignore them. You want to, celebrate that connection you had, even if they shouldn't be a part of your life, and they're not going to be a part of your life. And, like he's not going to be a part of Todd or Diane's life probably at all, or even Princess Carolyn's. But it was that was a very touching last thing. And like Todd getting on his shoulders and everything. I was about to cry just from that.
That's why we close to the fireworks.
I'm about to cry right now talking about it. And then that last scene with Diane, the roof is also, again, one of my favorites. And that obviously wasn't as happy as the other ones. It wasn't not happy, but it was,
Yeah.
Diane like laid it out there. It's like, you really fucked me up.
Yeah.
You really screwed me over. But I still care about you in some ways. And, just her, like, again, you talking about her being a different person now. And she said, like, I don't regret living in LA, but I also am not fond of it. Like, he said something about, are you nostalgic for it or something like that?
Or something like that.
And she said, like, no, I wouldn't use that word. He's like, I was my worst self then. He's like, but I don't regret it. I'm glad I did it. But it's interesting. Which is very interesting because, like, the life she's talking about regret or not regretting, but like not being fond of and everything, that's the whole life we saw. We haven't seen a lot of her life that she's living right now, but it's kind of cool just seeing a glimpse.
It's kind of I think it's good about this in the ending for all the characters. It is very open. We got a little taste of it, like where they are in life, but as far as where it's going for there, we expected finality for Bojack in particular, as far as all this, like either him dying or him just being straight up in jail for most of his life, not getting out. I mean, he's getting out on what was it, 2-3 months after where the show ended.
Yeah,
we expected either that or a long time or something.
Yeah,
but like that was like, no, he's gonna be out, and I don't know, things are more clear to him, and in a way, and we have no idea what's going to happen with his life. It could be he just continues this circle of life of his where he thinks he can be better, then he messes up again, but now this time he won't have his safety nets per se.
Right. Yeah.
Or unless
and it's I think it's still open for how Bojack's story ends. And I mean, I honestly think the show is stronger for that. I think this is a stronger ending than Bojack is dead or Bojack is in prison.
I mean, and even then, we got no definite finality for any of the characters. Diane is getting engaged, but even she was like, she's happy and everything, but who knows? Because it's Carolyn, even like you said earlier, is like, nothing is for sure or whatever. Like, I'm happy with this now, but I guess the only thing for her that's for sure is she will love Rufy. So that's about it. Todd, who knows with Todd?
But we don't know how Ruthie's life is going to go, or that's because real life, if you just stop watching someone's real life at age whatever they are, like 40 something, 50 something, whatever, for the, not all of them, but like if you just stop watching someone's life at a certain point, you're not going to have finality, because that's not how a life works. Like they're going to have, Diane has, all of these people have another half, if not more, like over half of their life left to go. It's just this is such a more, like, because of how real this show felt, which is weird for a wacky cartoon, but like these are some of the most real like characters that I've seen in any show or just media ever. It like, this is so much stronger than like, everyone's like, that's this character, and it's like, we're gonna tie him up, put him in the box, that's that character. That would feel so wrong in this show.
Yeah, and even with like, even we were like this with Bojack's ending in particular, like, kind of expecting him to die or whatever.
It's hard. It's hard to predict this ending, but this is the best ending.
Yeah, like with the whole view from halfway down, and if he died there, it still kind of worked with the show as far as like just Bojack's cycle. But what I'm kind of now, especially having all this stuff, because we watched it a little over a week ago, so we've had the time to think about it. Makes me like this better is if Bojack died there. That's not any different than how he could have died at the beginning of the series.
It could have happened at any time.
It could have happened at any time, and you could argue that's a point of the show, at least with Bojack's arc. But it's nice to, even if it's not the ending we expected or anything, or the happy ending or anything, at least there is some progression as far as like him as a character in this, and not, oh nope, this is just he can never change whatsoever, or not feel any regret or whatever, and just.
Right.
I mean, it was a lot that way for a lot of the series, but it's nice that it didn't exactly end that way, but it still ended in a way that makes sense for him.
Right. Like, and that's, I think a lot of times when this type of thing happens, when someone's like, oh, they're going to die. Oh, no, they're not. It feels cheap, and it feels like you're doing that because like, oh, we can't kill the main character. This, like, even just in the hour or whatever we've talked about this, I'm feeling better about this ending in the past, in the end. And I mean, I think if it had ended with the view from halfway down, I think it would have had a bigger pop right immediately, and we would have been talking about that. But I think in the long run, we would look at the show obviously still very fondly, but I don't think we would look at this ending nearly as fondly as we did with this. I think this is the ending that makes a lot more sense for Bojack. And like with time, and I think it, in a weird way, usually it's the other way around. Usually killing the character is the ballsy thing to do. And that's why like Game of Thrones stopped doing that, because they weren't doing the ballsy thing. They were doing the safe option of the Deus Ex Machina. Now they're back and they're alive, because we don't want to write the story without them, but we want to have the tension of they're gonna die, but we don't, like, so they take the safe way out. In a weird way, I kind of feel like with Bojack, this is the more ballsy ending. I feel like killing him would have been, with the way that this show was set up, the honestly safer. Like, we're gonna get a reaction from the audience. Everyone is gonna feel emotions and probably, like, everything. If we just end it there, I think it's a lot more ballsy to be like, this is like the effects of the view from halfway down are like kind of just as potent, but just in a more subtle way. Like they're just as there. They're there if you look for them, but it's not like overt. And this is an ending that a lot of people are not going to like.
Yeah.
And I didn't I loved it, but I didn't I had problems at first, and honestly, as it goes on, those problems are starting to become not problems for me anymore. But a lot of people are not going to get there. A lot of people are not.
And plus, I'm not saying people are wrong feeling the way they feel,
100%.
or anything, but it is a thing of people like, certainty and everything, and it being tied up in finality of it, just like with that, or the way Bojack ended, and the whole thing with Hollyhock, which. Based on what I've seen, I think it's even more controversial than the way The View from Halfway Down ended. Because that was like, people were like, they need the ending to Hollyhock, or they need that finality, which we got. It's just not in the way people expected or necessarily.
I honestly think you got that. You got the Hollyhock ending. That is it.
Hollyhock, Bojack and Hollyhock's ending had the most finality out of any of these relationships.
Yeah, it's not like you didn't see her face and didn't see them face to face, but you got it.
It's like
that was the point.
We know as of right now that they're probably never going to really see each other again. At least not for a long time. With everyone else, except for maybe Bojack and Diane, there is something there where they might interact and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is my favorite anything of all time, I think, Jeff. I feel pretty confident in saying that. Who knows if it will always be that way. I've been saying this for a while, that I think Bojack is my favorite TV show, movie, video game, anything of all time. And then they just had probably the best season, or at least up there, that they had. I feel pretty comfortable saying that, because the writing, the creativity of this team, it kind of feels like it's just targeted straight at me, even though it's obviously not. But it's everything is just so. I don't have a complaint. There's nothing this show has done wrong, which is insane.
Yeah,
this is just a goddamn masterpiece.
If we picked at it, we could find a little something here or there. But no, I'm with you. One of it, not my favorite TV show of all time, for sure. I don't want to start out their favorite entertainment.
I'm not you don't have to do this. You don't have to jump on this. No one's expecting you to do that. I'm just saying for me.
No, but
it's up there.
Especially, again, the farther we go, I'm glad we had this week, because normally we try to get these things out pretty quick. I'm glad we waited a week.
I am too, because especially for that ending, I think we might have recorded it last week and then got to this point and be like, I disagree with myself from there. We need to hop back on.
No, I imagine what we feel now is probably about what we're going to be feeling from here on out, but maybe even feel a little better. But generally speaking,
this is the most clarity and certainty I think I've had on that ending. Yeah. And even just talking it out here has made me feel better about it.
Oh. No, I think The View from Halfway Down, the more I get away from it, is one of the most powerful episodes of TV I think I've ever seen. So
I agree. So I also
it deserves that 10.
Yeah, I've been looking at the 10 there. Let's see. I'm just interested in the showstopper. The showstopper in a more brutal way, I also think, is one of the best ever. I wonder if that has a 10. Not at least 10s. 9.6. The showstopper was when Gina the falling out. Yeah.
Hey, that's the next to last episode. Shit happened. I know. That's all I need to know.
That's not any Bojack second to last episode of a season. Hold on to your butts.
Hold on to your butts.
All right, Jeff. Well, any last parting thoughts on Bojack Horseman before we close? Great, the door?
And everyone should watch it.
God, yeah. Anyone who has not watched it,
fucking over. I mentioned this to you, but that week was a roller coaster between this and Arrow, both ending the same week
immediately. Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot of long running things.
Yeah, what would also have been, I told you this, what would have also been very funny.
I don't know if we should worry about Arrow spoilers. That's up to you.
What I'm about to say is
we're not going to talk about anything else more. If you're worried about Arrow spoilers, thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Yeah. Right. No, what I was saying is, they broadcast this a year ago that was going to happen. Okay. Oliver Queen dying. That was known. It'd been very interesting. I've been watching these shows for years. They end the same week, and both characters die the next to before the last episode, and it's kind of like an epilogue of all the characters.
It probably you felt like, oh shit, not again. Why?
Oh boy. very taxing week for me emotionally between those two.
I imagine. Yep. Yeah, I'm trying to get like my sister and her fiance to watch this because they kind of bounce off the show in season 1. I'm like, I don't know if it's necessarily your thing, but God, it's just so good. I have to recommend it to everyone, even if like the whole Hollywood vibe and everything's not your thing. But like, I try to tell them it's like it's not glorifying Hollywood. It's legitimately showing how fucked up a lot of these lifestyles are. But yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. That was a lot of fun. That was emotional. We need healing very badly. We need that emotional compensation that Bojack promised us on Twitter. Well, thank you guys so much. Check out our other Nuzlocke Spoilercast things. We have a bunch of other ones. The Witcher, Rise of Skywalker, some other stuff. Check out Nuzlocke Gaming Podcast. Post every Monday. All about video games. We talk about TPO. It's a TPO fan cast.
Yep.
And then check out Nerds and Dragons, which is our D&D podcast that is about to start up again soon. Oh boy, that show. It's never going to come back. And a part of me died. I legitimately felt like losing a friend at times. It was like not having that show every year. But it would have... Nothing would have like... It would have been the most depressing news possible if it was like, oh, Bojack's getting canceled and they don't even get to have an ending. I would have been crushed. Absolutely crushed.
That was always the fear.
Yeah. Or that the ending was rushed. And overall, I think it was not. Overall, it was like it was a very, very satisfying.
Gave me more confidence when they said, hey, we're like, because it was taking a long time to come out compared to the last season. It's like, oh no.
Now we know why.
Then it's like, the last episode is like, oh, it's longer and all that. Splitting up two is like, oh, okay. I feel better about this whole thing in general.
It's longer and we have to wrap get to the end of the show. So. Yep, my favorite show of all time had a equally amazing resolution, and couldn't be happy.
Only Game of Thrones could have had it.
We don't speak that name. That series is now only referred to by me as the Song of Ice and Fire. Game of Thrones is dead.
Go listen to our Spoilercast, the last episode for that. For funsies.
When became king. Yeah, it was rough. All right, thank you guys. Bye.